last night when we were feasting on pani puris and dal makhani and garlic naans, you just casually dropped that.
The best food.
The best food, hands down, hands down.
Yeah.
I'm a dal makhani maxi.
I could tell.
Yeah. So yeah, we're eating all this crazy food and casually you're just like, oh yeah, we're building DA 2.0, which is like 1,000 times faster, 1,000 times cheaper, and I'm like, yo, what is going on? There are like so many things, like I don't know where to get started from, right? So your education was like UC Berkeley, research at Harvard, Stanford, and then you're the founder and CEO of Garten, which was part of like YC as well. It's a unicorn which is valued at like $1 billion. You have had like multiple awards, like top YC company, top 100 entrepreneurs. Like I have a list here which is like a never ending thing, right? Keeping all these things aside, right?
Yeah.
Like, who is Michael? Like, who really is Michael, and like, what is your story?
Yeah, to me, it was a bit more of a story of finding meaning in my life. You know, a lot of times when I was making decisions, especially in the early days, I didn't realize it until much later, but it was much more about like trying to look good and really creating a story around my dad, even, where I was sort of like, well, I need to prove to him that I'm worthy of his love, I'm worthy of his attention. So how do I make sure that I get the most prestigious schooling? How do I get like the most prestigious jobs so that I'm worthy of his love and attention? And this was like the story that was in the back of my mind basically most of the time. And so I just went on and did all these things that you mentioned, and felt proud of myself. I got into these companies, and then one day I was sitting at Bridgewater and I was like, I'm feeling miserable. I'm getting like super well compensated and I'm feeling miserable. And I had no idea why. And so I went into this like deeper search for meaning and trying to figure out like, what is it that I really care about? And then that's when I started doing things like transcendental meditation, like landmark education, interpersonal dynamics types of training. And that's when I really realized that I wasn't living life for myself.
Right.
And I had to then figure out what is it that I truly want to contribute to the world.
Right.
And that's when my entrepreneurial journey really started.
Right.
And basically figured out I just want to be of service and I want to leave a better world than I found it. And one of the things I was particularly excited about when I started my first company was really about having this mission of giving people healthy and blissful lives.
Right.
I realized, for example, when I was younger, I was growing up with a grandma in Berlin, Germany, that is a medical doctor, and kept telling me like, eat from my organic garden, go to bed on time, like have a good friendship circle, like really simple things.
Right.
But that I wasn't following, certainly not when I was working. And I was like, well, why can't we just change things around a little bit and, create a much healthier atmosphere in companies?
Right.
And so that was really the genesis. I was looking for how do I, take what I learned about myself, what I got about myself with all these different practices, and then bring it to others.
Right.
So that was really the inception of when I truly felt like I'm living for myself. I'm living, who Michael truly is meant to be.
Right. Before we get into like zero gravity and all the nitty-gritties behind it, right? I just want to like take a few minutes here and like really understand the kind of childhood and the kind of life you've had before, let's say before this happened, before entrepreneurship happened, right? How were your schooling years? Like, I mean, you did like UC Berkeley, Stanford, and Harvard, right? How does it feel like to be the chosen one? How does it feel like to be God's favorite child, or literally any parent's favorite child on the planet?
Oh, that's so funny that you mentioned it that way. To me, it was just sort of like I worked pretty hard at it, but really there was kind of this drive of needing to prove again that I'm good enough, and so that drove me a lot. So, for example, when I was in first grade and I brought home my report card and I showed it to my parents, I was like all proud. And this is a German school system. You're graded on from 1 to 6. And so I had like mostly 1s, and there were some like 1 minuses. So it's like the equivalent of an A minus or whatever.
Right.
And then instead of saying like, hey, good job, my parents were like, why is there an A minus on there?
Right.
Like, well, what's wrong with that? And I was like, oh man, what the hell? What did I do wrong? And I was starting to blame myself. It's like, okay, I just got to try harder next time. And so I think that was a little bit of the environment that I grew up in.
Right.
And there's also an environment of like complete change in a way. So the other thing that I experienced was I was part of this like historical moment of the German Wall or the Berlin Wall falling. So I was like super little, and we were maybe 100 meters away from the wall. I kind of wake up during the night. I hear my parents like celebrating. They have like champagne glasses in their hands. They like have friends over. I'm like, what the hell's going on? I like go outside. I see a bunch of people just like storming towards the wall, just like masses of people. And to me, I was like, I have no idea what's going on. This is boring. I'm going back to bed. And only later I really realized the like big significance. So the fun part of this, I was on the east side. And because of that historical event, I even was able to go to America later on when I was 13. So in a way that kind of shaped my thinking that anything is possible. So something like that can happen. Why can't I make big things happen? And so I think that was a very important kind of moment in my life that I didn't realize at the time, but much later reflecting on it, I realized. So you've got kind of this like, you know, very hardcore kind of parenting around, you know, just keep pushing to get better, plus historical moments. So anything's possible with kind of hard work mentality. And that's what I just took kind of to how I looked at life. And so as a result, I just consistently strive to better myself. Like every day I wanted to be better than the previous day. And I think that led me to then just get into kind of some of the schooling, because I found ways of, you know, I just want to accomplish this. How do I do this? Okay, there's no barriers. I'm going to make it happen.
And where did you grow up? So this was in Berlin.
East Berlin. Yeah.
Okay, and from there you moved to SF.
Correct. Yeah. So wall came down. Spent many years in Berlin. My dad got a job at SAP, essentially. So very quickly, and then our life like completely changed. Like we got a color TV. My dad got like a BMW as a company car, and so then I started watching commercials, and there were all these things that I never knew existed, and I really wanted to have all of a sudden, like a bunch of toys and that type of stuff. And then, yeah, when I was 13, we basically moved to the States, and so into Silicon Valley, and that's where I really you know, got the entrepreneurial bug as well. Like everybody around was like starting companies. There's innovation, and there's just fun time. Like the whole internet boom was happening at that time. Yeah.
And that's how like you came about like starting Garten. Do you want to like tell everyone what's Garten? How did you start building Garten, and like how did the journey from building a company to becoming like a unicorn like went about, right?
Oh man, lots of blood, sweat, and tears in some ways. But it started with like a very innocent idea. It was just sort of like saying I wasn't exposed to a lot of health and well-being practices in my corporate environments that I worked in. So whether it was like Microsoft, Bain, Bridgewater, or whatever. And how do I fundamentally just change that environment? How do I make it a more hospitable environment? Like how do I bring, you know, healthier food products like my grandma's garden into the office? How do I bring like meditation and yoga into the office? And so that was really the original thought. And I had no idea how to build a business model around it. I didn't even know if it was venture scale. I just wanted to do something good. So I went back to grad school at Stanford, and I took a class called the Lean Launchpad class. And I don't know if you know Steve Blank, but he's like the father of the like Lean startup movement. So he was teaching the class. And basically through that experience, I learned how to build a really business model, how to drive revenue, how to take an idea and consistently like modify it. Because we started out with an experiment. We wanted to build like a B2C snack box before the class, and I was like, this is a terrible business. I want to get out of this. So how do I actually build a better business? And then we explored the whole like B2B angle during that class. And within like 2 or 3 weeks, we ended up getting sales. And I was just like, this thrill of the first customer, even if it's like $10 or whatever for a first order, was just phenomenal. I was just getting like a high from that. And then just kept building it from there.